Hello my friends, so we are currently editing my second book, Dying with Regrets. So, we've been talking about in the edits about how I've been going on this journey of self-discovery and really going deep within myself to discover who I am and what I've been through in the past, especially when I was in hospital and going through that out-of-body experience after being attacked and was laying there on my deathbed. So, that was really back in 2020 with the COVID lockdowns when I started to go on that deep inward journey. However, something was calling me that there was something else for me to discover about myself, which is much greater than just the meditation and the breathing exercises that I was doing back in 2020. So let's go through this chapter, and we're going to be talking about my first ever ayahuasca retreat that I went on and the profound experiences that I went through and how it actually changed my life. So, this chapter is called, What is This? After Christmas passed by, we were now in 2023. I had booked my one-way ticket back to Colombia and also reserved my week's stay at the ayahuasca retreat. I was a little nervous, but also super excited for what would unfold over the following months. I arrived back in Bogota and went straight down to Cali before making it back up to Medellin, where I would embark on this epic inward adventure. After 2 weeks of preparing myself for the retreat, I was now totally ready. My diet was clean, my mind was clear, and I felt as if this was exactly where I needed to be in this very moment of my life. February the 20th, 2023, we were all stood in a gas station car park in Medellin, waiting for the bus to come and take us to the retreat. Me and my newfound friends were sharing who we were, where we were from, and what we were thinking about as we embarked on this journey of self. The bus arrived and we all set off. As we shared stories on the bus, it seemed that we all had many similar emotions running round our bodies for what we were about to do. Once we arrived at the stunning retreat, we were all assigned our rooms and started to settle in. We had a great dinner and got to know each other even more that evening. Then everyone went to bed excited about tomorrow evening's first ceremony. I woke up at 3:30 a.m. but managed to get back to sleep for a few more hours before being woken by the song of the beautiful birds. I decided to take my journal and sit out in the garden overlooking the mountains to write down all my thoughts, feelings, emotions and intentions for my first ayahuasca experience. I was keeping an open mind as to what I would experience that evening, and I trusted that the medicine would guide me in the right direction. That afternoon we all gathered as a group and participated in a word circle where we shared any concerns we had and also discussed how the whole process would go. Early evening came as the sun went down. The fire was lit and the shamans were preparing the space for our sacred ceremony. We all grabbed our blankets, buckets, and each chose a mattress which we would lay on throughout the night. After the taita, or shaman, blessed the ayahuasca, we were all invited up to participate in our first ayahuasca experience. I went up first and stood in front of the taita, who looked directly into my eyes. It was like he was scanning my soul, and he said a few spiritual words, poured the thick tar-like sludge into the shot glass, blessed it, and then handed it back to me. I thanked the ayahuasca and drank it, and as I did, I felt this thick, sticky sludge slide down my neck and spread itself all around my insides. I then welcomed it into my body and went back to lay down in my bed. An hour had passed by and I felt no difference at all. I remembered the intentions I had set, and I repeatedly thanked Mother Ayahuasca for being with me. I kept telling her that I was ready to go on a journey and that I wanted her to show me what I needed to see. But nothing seemed to be happening. And I thought that maybe this doesn't work for me. Almost 2 hours after taking that first cup, I would sometimes get a watery mouth like I wanted to be sick, but nothing was coming up. Persian is actually a part of the ayahuasca process, and I was ready with my bucket by my side to vomit into it if and when I needed to. Now it was time for the second cup. Once again, I accepted the medicine from the Taita and welcomed her into my body, and went and laid back down on my bed. After a short period of time whilst laying there, eyes closed, I began to notice faint colours which soon turned into some sort of ginormous revolving slideshow with lots of cartoon characters stuck to it. After watching this huge rolling pin-like structure spinning in the black void for what seemed to be forever, I started to see periods of portals opening up, and then suddenly realised I was on a cliff edge. These delicately glowing green and red portals were mesmerising to watch, and something was telling me to dive into them. This meant leaving the comfort of the cliff edge and jumping in head first. So I did, and after doing so was transported through these tubular, colourful, cloudy tunnels. After what felt like flying through these green and red opaque portals in dark space for a very long while, my right ear began to crackle and pop. I sensed a feeling like I was reaching altitude, and at one point it felt like there was a firework going off in my right ear. I remember that I kept on rolling over to try and stop the exploding sensation in my ear, but nothing seemed to work. Then my stomach began to churn and my mouth was leaking a lot of water. I sat up, grabbed my bucket and began to purge. After vomiting multiple times, I lay back down and closed my eyes. I felt so much better, and out of nowhere I started to experience a feeling of non-existence. It was like my whole body was slowly melting and dissolving away. It was very peaceful and such a surreal experience to feel my face, body and legs slowly disappear. All I focused on was my breath and the sound of the magical medicine music being softly played next to us. I kept thinking, did I just make all of this up within my own mind? My intention for that first night was to see some sort of confirmation that I was on the correct path, after quitting my one and only day job to pursue my mission of helping others from the knowledge and experience I had gained from facing and overcoming the adversities in my life. I suddenly felt absolutely fine. I felt fresh and rejuvenated. Then I realised that people seemed to be turning around and staring at me, and I couldn't understand why. I looked at the Taita and he gave me a nod. Then one of the volunteers came over and asked me if I was okay, and I replied with, "I don't think it's working." He told me that sometimes people don't feel anything on their first time, and that I should be very patient and let things keep happening the way that they were. I kept seeing the Taita looking at me as he made his way around the sacred space, performing his rituals. The volunteer spoke with the shaman and then came back to me and said that the Taita said that on this first night someone has been chosen to be a guide and a lookout for others, and it was me. So for me, that was the confirmation I was looking for, to tell me I had made the right decision to quit the job that wasn't aligned with why I had been put here on earth in the first place. Whilst I was sat up on my bed against the back wall, I began to look around me as this dreamlike experience unfolded. I witnessed people going through their own unique journeys. I saw love, I saw pain, I saw joy, and I saw happiness. In that moment I felt fully fulfilled inside, knowing that these people were facing their demons buried deep inside of them and surrendering to the power of the medicine. I didn't feel the need to lay back down or to close my eyes anymore, but actually felt called to look out for others and felt the deep desire to observe this painfully beautiful scene. As I sat watching patiently, I put out positive energy to those who were struggling and was so happy to see them releasing their pain. Every time I would make eye contact with someone going through their unique journey, I would give them a nod of the head and a big smile to encourage them to keep pushing through the pain. I was filled from within with love, joy and gratitude watching these people facing their past pain. Remember that emotions are the reporters for the soul. When we feel happy, we show the whole world how happy we are by taking selfies and putting up posts online with our cars and our cocktails. But when we feel sad, we still feel the need to always pretend to be happy. This should not be the case, because emotions are there to be felt. You need to feel it in order to heal it. As the music slowed and the fire began to dim, and everyone made it back to their mattress, I too laid back down and put my head on my pillow. Then we all fell asleep outside. As I was nodding off, I remembered seeing visions of the game Pac-Man, but with bugs running around. I didn't know what this meant, but I ended up falling asleep to it. The next day we were all woken up by the beautiful sound of the birds singing once again, and to look out as the sun rose behind the mountains. Everyone looked worn out, but also looked to be so happy after last night's roller coaster of a ride. We ended up getting cleansed by the shamans, then had an amazing word circle to discuss our experiences, all ready to prepare for another night's adventure. Just before 6 p.m, the fire was lit, and then we all chose our beds. I decided to get close to the fire and also close to the music. This evening we took the ayahuasca from out in the garden. As I was waiting for my turn, I looked up to see the most stunning shooting star I had ever seen fly across the sky. I took my first cup, made it back to my bed, and then laid there looking at the fascinating flames of the fire. I felt some water in my mouth, but also felt as if it wasn't time yet. And soon after that, I started to see some crazy shapes within my mind. These shapes were spiraling round and had teeth and smiles coming out of them towards me. Now it was time for the second cup. I really wasn't feeling it, but I still went up to get it. And as I was walking back with my bucket, I stopped, sat on the wall, and instantly purged. I then made it back to my bed and sensed that I was being given a gift. Remembering what we had spoken about in the word circle, I decided to be selfish in this moment. I took it all in whilst letting the magical sounds of the music massage my brain. I kept seeing these smiles coming towards me, which would then transform into eyes and teeth. It was incredible to see this within my mind, and then I opened my eyes and looked out in front of me, where I saw everyone dancing and celebrating around the fire. The next day I woke up outside again and sat discussing what had happened the night before with some of the others. This was a day off where we wouldn't be drinking any ayahuasca at all. It was a day to rest, relax and recharge. We were all a bit tired, so we done our word circle, chilled out at the swimming pool, had dinner and went to bed ready for an early start for our first day ceremony the following morning. I woke up feeling fresh and took a shower at 5 a.m. because I was super excited to see what would unfold today. I prepared my bed and went up to get my first cup, which was tiny compared to the 4 I had on the previous nights. However, I trusted the tighter's measurements. I walked away with my bucket, but instead of heading back to my bed, I felt the urge to take a chair and go and sit up on the grass mound in the garden. In that moment, I was completely overwhelmed and flooded with gratitude and appreciation for everything and everyone I had in my life. I was sat looking out at the mountains and the birds flying over, then started crying my eyes out with pure pleasure and happiness. I then moved my chair closer to the stage where the music was being played and went up to take my second cup. As the tighter poured yet another tiny cup, he stared directly into my soul and asked me if I had vomited. I replied with a no, and then he grabbed my head and pushed his index finger directly into my third eye. I felt as if his finger was on fire and the heat was pushed through my skull and into my brain. I could only compare it to what the feeling would be like if someone pushed a lit cigarette into my forehead. He smiled at me as he handed over the cup after blessing it. I sipped the small amount of ayahuasca which was sitting in the bottom of the glass, and then returned to my chair, thinking that it wouldn't do anything at all because it was so small. I was now sat in my chair whilst witnessing everyone around me beaming with joy and happiness. I watched as people purged and danced. I also felt like purging a few times, but nothing seemed to come up. Today was a totally different vibe. I'm not sure what triggered this, but I was suddenly shot up into a completely different dimension. It was like I was on a roller coaster stuck inside a kaleidoscope. There were the most wonderful, gigantic, colourful shapes spinning towards me, which were constantly revolving and evolving to become bigger and brighter. I was absolutely mesmerised as these shapes, scattered with precious gems, spun around in my mind. At one point, things went a bit weird, and then I felt as if I was trapped inside a real-life Alice in Wonderland movie. People were coming and people were going, and some very strange things were happening. It was like I was trapped in a void between actual and virtual reality. My feelings were forever changing. I felt happy, excited, and scared all at the same time. At one point, I felt the medicine moving around my stomach. It was almost like I was ready to purge, but it was a different kind of feeling. I remember looking down at my belly to see that it was moving, rumbling, and kicking. I felt as if I had an ayahuasca baby inside of me. This scared me, and my heart began to speed up to the point where I believed it was going to blow up and I would die. At one point, I felt my heart stop completely. I frantically checked over all of my body for a pulse, but couldn't feel anything. I had died, but I was still breathing, and I was still alive. This told me that there was nothing to worry about, and that I could completely trust the journey. Scanning my body, I noticed my left leg was somehow bowed, and I couldn't control the mechanic-like movements of my left hand. I then looked down at my shorts, and although not on show, I believe my penis had been replaced with a pasty, or in Spanish, empanada. I honestly believed I was going to be trapped in this crazy alternative reality forever, but I kept reminding myself that this was just a trip, to breathe and to just let things happen. Nothing made sense. Things were getting crazy, and I couldn't understand any of it, but it was also absolutely incredible. My senses were super sensitive. I could see, feel and hear everything in Ultra HD quality. I could hear so loudly all the bugs and birds from very far away. I could see things glistening, and at one point I felt there was a fly stuck inside my mouth. Although I tried to forever get this fly out of my mouth, I kept reminding myself that it was just a trip. I turned around because I could hear people talking so loudly, but as I did, their English transformed into Hebrew. But I somehow understood everything they were saying, and as they sat down on the sofa, it instantly turned to fluent French. Then the guy stood up and asked me something, but as he said it, it came out in a deep Russian voice. I was completely confused. I was literally glued to that chair all day, and sometimes almost falling out of it. Every time I felt as if things were ending, then they suddenly got a whole lot stronger and even more crazy. At one point, I started to have the ability to predict the future. At first, I thought it was a fluke, but I tried it out multiple times and soon realised I could calculate everything that was going to happen way before it did actually come into existence. This was freaking me out a little bit to begin with, but then it actually convinced me to accept that everything in life is in fact happening just the way it should be. Things started to slowly calm down, and I felt myself being grounded back down to earth. As I looked around me, everybody was smiling and looking at me amazed. In amazement, they said, "You've been glued to that chair all day long." And they also said, "You must be knackered," as I had been ferociously swaying up and down, left and right, a lot. In all honesty, I didn't know how to reply, and I was lost for words. Then I looked at everyone and said, "That was fucking amazing." As I looked to my left, the Tighter had come down from the stage and was walking towards me with the greatest grin on his face. He was literally smiling from ear to ear, and I felt the connection with him like he knew exactly what I had just gone through. He leant down and gave me the warmest hug I have ever received, and then nodded and walked away. The next day was the last ceremony at the retreat, and after the previous day's roller coaster of a ride, I wasn't hoping for another one and just wanted to enjoy the day. I went up and took my first cup, and it tastes vile. Then I went to lay down in my bed and waited for the music to start playing. I was enjoying myself, watching others going through their journeys, as it was a completely different picture to what I had witnessed the very first night. Now there were scenes of joy, love and pure happiness. I didn't want to take a second cup, but after contemplating it for a while, I decided to go up and ask for a very small amount. I took it and then laid back down in my bed and let the mesmerising music massage my brain yet again. The final day was a day for reflection. It was time to gather all my thoughts and feelings from this mind-blowing and enlightening experience. Just remember that ayahuasca doesn't always give you what you want, but she always gives you what you need. I felt super grateful for what Mother Ayahuasca had shown me, so I decided to sit down and journal what I had learned. 3 main lessons from my ayahuasca experience were that nothing is permanent, everything changes, and the right people will always come into your life at the right time. I realised that coming back from specialists planning to pull the plug on my life support machine whilst in hospital was the only prescription I ever needed, as this was pure proof that I was meant to pursue a different path or purpose. I was sent back to use my past pain to positively perpetuate the lives of people here on earth. I learned to have complete confidence in the process of life and to trust the divine timing of the universe, because nothing happens a moment too early, nor a moment later than it should. So many are cautiously travelling through this journey of life, overly paranoid about what might happen to them, rather than having the faith that everything is happening for their greater good. There's a term called pronoia, which is the opposite to paranoia, and it states that the universe is conspiring in our favour at all times. Despite sometimes feeling as if life is doing the exact opposite. So it's all about having the belief that life is happening for you and not to you. And appreciating that the good times don't last forever, but neither do the bad times. Life is such a beautiful gift, and it's possible to achieve anything with the right mindset, backed up Life is such a beautiful gift, and it's possible to achieve anything with the right mindset, backed up by repeated uncomfortable actions. The universe is a magical place that is full of life-changing opportunities waiting to be discovered, just as long as we surrender ourselves to letting the path reveal itself in the way that it wants to. There is so much more to life than what's on the surface, and we can't see it all with just our eyes. This is why it's so important to be tuned into the correct frequency at all times, so that we can attract the desired things towards us and welcome them into our lives. Boom! We're going to finish there, my friends. So thank you so much for coming on today. Yeah, nice to see you. Thanks for coming on and joining me on this edit of the book, this part of the process on the editing. If you want to get on the wait list, visit dyingwithregrets.ryannurse.com. Click the link in my bio or send me a DM, leave a comment on here, and I will sort you out. I will hook you up. But yeah, thanks so much. Make sure you stay tuned in for the next one. Peace out, people. Bye-bye.